That has been completed and submitted for court review. The defendant is present today in court with counsel, Mr. Matthews. We are here for purposes of sentence. According to the Lake County Adult Probation Department, the defendant has 6 days jail time credit.
Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Jackson is asking for community control. I did indicate to the court that he was working weekends. He did just inform me that he is in the process of getting a job more full-time with CMHA. He was supposed to start yesterday. But we do think that he's an appropriate candidate for community control. He does have a number of family obligations that he went into great detail regarding in his pre-sentence report. He does have a prior prison sentence, but since being released in 2020, he has no more convictions up until this point. We understand there is a pending case. But we do think that if the court does place him on community control, certainly he has been using marijuana rather heavily for a number of years, and he would ask to be able to address that issue on an outpatient basis so that he may continue to keep up with the obligations he has with his family, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, who do you have here for you?
Today, this is my fiance, and this is my youngest son.
Okay.
I could rearrange
It may not be a good idea to have your son in here for this, but that's up to you. That's up to you. You can either stay or go. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just telling you it may not be a good idea. What do you have to say?
Just that I'm not a bad person. I mean,
Why are you selling drugs?
I accept full responsibility.
I know I didn't ask you if you accept the responsibility. I asked why you were doing it.
I just had came upon some hard times. I have been out of work.
Why were you out of work?
Well, basically, the company that I had started, I was just running into a few minor problems, trying to get back into the loop of things since I had been home. I did like just a few events, but just trying to maintain everything as far as bills and things like that. I was working at a factory job for a while. They did some, you know, how factories are, they did company downsize or layoff or whatever you call it. I was working there for about...
Listen, all I kept reading in the past, when did this happen? Last year, a year ago, roughly?
Yes, June and July of 2024.
Okay, all I kept hearing from like 21 to 24 is how employers couldn't find employees. Nobody wanted to work because the federal government was handing out money like it was candy. So there were jobs out there. So if you didn't get a job, that was your fault.
No, I was working. I was working.
So why are you selling drugs then?
I got out in 2020 and I was working for about almost about 2 years.
Okay.
And the job that I was working that laid me off.
All right, then
I
there was
had 3 jobs. I was working at a factory and 2 restaurants on the weekends.
Okay, so why were you selling drugs?
The factory job, which paid the bulk of the amount of money that I needed to sustain myself, laid me off.
Okay. Did you get another job?
I have been looking. I tried at Amazon. I tried basically everywhere that I knew. I actually just, like I told my lawyer, I just started a job yesterday working with CMHA as a general laborer doing cleanouts. The guy told me, he said, you know, you did good work. He actually, I told him I had a pending case, so I was supposed to get paid Friday. He actually paid me yesterday because I told him, you know, I got a pending case situation going on. He said, you know, if you want to work, you know, it's here, but you got to be here every day. He said you were on time. You know, you did good work. Everybody, you know, said you did good work. So, you know, the job is here if you want it.
What? Who did you sell drugs to?
It's a friend of mine.
Who?
I'm not gonna even lie to you. Like, I don't even remember the guy's name. I hadn't seen him in over a year. It was a guy I met through a mutual friend, and we both had like similar things in common. He
So
was hanging out in
how
the
did you
music
happen
studio.
to run into this guy?
I was in a music studio with my head DJ. He had a music studio located on East 66th, I believe, in St. Clair, depending on which way you're coming. It might be Addison if you're coming from St. Clair. I think it's 66 if you're coming from Superior. And he was just in the studio with us. We were talking about doing like some music stuff.
That's the first time you had seen him in a year?
You said, was that the first time I saw him in a year?
Yeah.
No, that was the first time I met him
When?
in 2022, I believe, because it was after I had been laid off from the factory. So I started back promoting and doing things with a couple of local DJs. I met him in a music studio. He lived maybe 2 houses over from the music studio. And we were talking, and while we were sitting in the car, I told my lawyer this. As we were sitting in the car, some guy walked up and went in the guy's house, and he found out that his girlfriend was cheating on him. And we started smoking, we had a drink, and I was,
Okay, so last year, you sold to him.
yes.
So how is it that you sold to him? What happened?
Basically, he had called me. He expressed some concerns that his kid, his child's mom wasn't letting him see his kid, and he was just, I guess, feeling down. And he asked me for numerous things, but I told him I don't.
What numerous things?
Man, he was asking me could I watch his girl for him? Could I drive by the house, see if I saw any cars outside?
When's the last time before that you saw him or talked to him?
Maybe 3 months.
Okay. So how is it that you sold something to him?
Basically, he called me out of the blue. He told me, basically like I'm doing bad. I was wondering if you could help me out. I want to get some bud, maybe some coke. I guess he was having some sort of function at his house, a barbecue or something. And I had went out to his house. I met him one time at his house, or near his house. It's been a while ago. I was high at the time myself, but I know I met him somewhere in Menor.
In Menor?
Yes.
Where in Menor? Where the sale occurred?
Yes.
And why in Menor?
That's where he lived at the time.
Okay.
I believed anyways.
And then you did it about a month later?
I'm going to be honest, Judge, I really don't know the exact time frame. So
Okay,
I
I do. About a month later, what happened there? He call you again?
Yeah, he basically called me again. This time I didn't meet him anywhere near his house. We met near a mall or a parking lot or something.
Okay.
And he asked me for like basically the same thing, bud and some coke. And when I got there, he told me that there was a problem. He didn't have all the money that he said, because I had bought it for him. You know what I'm saying? So he told me he didn't have all the money.
What do you
so
mean
I told him,
what do you mean you bought it for him?
I went and purchased it.
Where'd you get it from?
The same place where I met him at the music studio on East 66 in St. Clair.
So somebody's selling out of the music studio?
I guess.
You guess. Well, you don't guess, you know.
I mean, yeah.
'Cause you got it, right?
Yes,
Okay. Now's not the time to bullshit me, right?
correct.
And so you got another charge in Cuyahoga that's pending, right?
Yes, when they put me
What
on.
happened at the pretrial last week?
Nothing. It was rescheduled.
Was rescheduled for when?
The 28th.
Who's your lawyer there?
A gentleman by the. Well, he's not actually my actual lawyer. He's like the assistant for that lawyer. I could get his name. I can't think of it right off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Did you hire that lawyer or was he appointed?
He was appointed. Basically, what transpired is they just told me the charges and what I had going on and whatnot, and we were asking about getting my car back because I haven't had a vehicle in this entire process. So we were trying to.
Why not?
Because they confiscated my car.
Back in February?
Yes.
What was the location of that arrest?
East 93rd and Harvard.
Now, you've been down this road before, right?
Yes.
So what happened in 18?
In 2018, I was living in a buddy of mine's house. Well, he wasn't a buddy of mine. It was just a friend of my fiance's family or whatever. We had lost our, the house that we were staying in was, the landlord hadn't paid the water and things like that, so things were getting pretty bad. So we moved in another house, and basically kind of sort of a same sort of similar scenario. I got cool with the landlord, didn't know that he was a drug dealer, and basically they raided the house, and it was other people living in there, and they tried to charge me basically with everything that was in the house, and I ended up just copping out to the stuff that was in my actual apartment.
Okay, so you've also got a possession in 12, so you got this possession or trafficking in 16, then in 18, and then 24, then this pending charge in 25. Why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again and keep getting caught? Why do you keep doing that?
Because I'm stupid.
Okay.
But I have a drug
But you're
problem
aware
myself.
enough to know that you're stupid, so why do you keep doing stupid things? You're not stupid, but you keep doing stupid things. Why is that? And it doesn't work. You're not successful at it.
Correct.
So why do you keep doing it over and over again?
In the process of what I had going on, I also was struggling with different drug addictions myself at the time.
Okay.
So a lot of
What drug addictions?
coke and ecstasy, preferably.
Okay. So what have you done about, I mean, do you like doing that stuff? You must like doing that stuff, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, then why do you keep doing it?
I don't know, man. I make bad decisions sometimes when I'm under pressure.
Well, how long have you been under pressure?
Pretty much my whole life.
Right. It's kind of like normal for people. So what have you done to try to deal with the pressure in a way that doesn't involve getting high all the time?
AA meetings, just staying away from, people, places, and things, surrounding myself with family, surrounding myself with people that want to better me. That's how I got the job offer. I've been clean, so by you, inquiring for me to stay clean, I was able to get the job for the CMHA position because I told him I was clean. I hadn't been smoking. I hadn't been drinking or doing anything.
Well, since when? When's the last time you smoked any pot?
As I told you when I came in, I believe it was my first time meeting with Mr. Matthews.
Okay. What treatment have you had before?
I don't know what it's called now, but it used to be called the Free Clinic in East Cleveland. They had a drug program there.
When was that?
That was in, I believe, 2015 or 16. And every time that I've been in the programs, I did complete them.
What am I missing here, Mr. Tompkins? I don't see any programs.
I can only go on what I've been told. So in 2012, he did a program through TASC.
Oh, there it is, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the first time you got in trouble with the drugs, 13 years ago. Well, I don't know what you did with, see, you were ordered in this early intervention program, which sounds like if you complete, you're not going to get convicted. Doesn't that sound like a version of treatment in lieu,
I'm sorry?
Dave?
It seems like a judge.
Because you were,
Because, I mean, he was ordered to go through TASC.
right?
At some point, he violated, was ordered to go to meetings. Another violation, another violation.
So you were sentenced, or you were placed in this program 12/5 of, I presume that's
12.
12. Okay, then on April of 13, you have a violation. And he told you to go to 4 AA meetings a week and report until June of 13. And it was extended in November for another 6 months, the EIP, so you're still not convicted at that point. March of 14, you failed to appear for a violation hearing. Warrant was out. You get picked up in December, 8 months later. The EIP is extended until January 2nd of 15, so another year.
Can I, would you like me to explain why
No,
that?
not
Okay.
yet, not till I'm done.
Okay.
December 29th, you failed to report. Warrant was issued, picked up in April of 15. Finally terminated April 21st of 15. May, placed on probation for a year. Report weekly, drug test each report, and then you're terminated from probation after about 2.5 months. So what do you want to tell me about that whole shenanigan?
Well, basically what happened was, I didn't notice at the time, but some of the probation officers that they have there were people that graduated through the programs themselves. And my probation officer at the time was, I believe, pursuing I don't really know what was going on in her life, but I believe she relapsed. And she tried to violate me multiple times. If the probation officer doesn't show up to the violation hearing, then they basically sort of take it as she doesn't want to pursue. And eventually what happened was she gave me a task, which I was supposed to read a book. And I read the book, and this time I started making copies because I felt like, maybe she was doing things purposely to get me in trouble. So I did a book report, and I actually made a copy of the book report. And when she didn't show up to the violation hearing, I showed it to the judge to prove to the judge that I had read the book. And finally, the judge just gave me a new probation officer. And the new probation officer, he basically said, you're working, you got a good head on your shoulders, you got a safe home, you got a transportation, you're reporting, you're not dropping any dirties. He said, I believe everything that you were saying, and he let me off early.
Okay, so that's August 11th of 15.
Yes.
So 11 months later, you get a drug possession. in a trafficking. Why?
Why
Why are you doing it again?
what year was this? I'm sorry.
July 7th of 2016. In Cleveland.
I believe I just was, once again, just due to my own addiction, I was riding with,
So what'd you learn from going through the program at Task?
going through the program at Task. I learned a lot about myself, preferably, and people, places, and things.
I hate that phrase.
I do too, because
Because
I
it
know
really
that-
doesn't mean anything, because if it meant anything, you wouldn't have picked this up in 16. If it meant anything, you wouldn't have gotten charged from last summer, okay? Because you're hanging around that guy who you hadn't seen for several months, okay? He's a bad, in the context of people, places, and things, he's a bad people. It's bad to be at the same place, and you're doing the wrong thing. So you're 0 for 3 on that.
Can I add something as well? Like I shared with this gentleman, at the time I had just started my own company. It was called Life Entertainment, and I was dealing with like a lot of, not like A-list celebrities, like no Jay-Z, no Beyonce's, but I was dealing with like just an upper class of people and trying to impress people, trying to blend in, trying to hang around those particular types of people is what sort of sprung my addiction. And it went worse. Like I told him, at that time I was getting involved with Molly, lean, or
Okay.
promethazine,
So-
whatever they call it.
So maybe that's the wrong business to be in for you,
Correct.
because it seems to lend itself that people like to direct themselves toward those things.
Yes, and I agree
And it don't
100%.
seem to work for you.
I agree, and I got away from that. I don't do the club scene anymore or the bar scene thing anymore.
Okay, but you gotta stop doing the drugs.
Correct, and I want to.
You may, I don't know. So you don't go to the clubs and the bars, but you're smoking pot every day.
Just as sort of like I explained to him during my PSI, like just due to like a lot of childhood trauma and things that I've seen growing up, it's just I have a hard time sleeping and just calming my nerves, keeping myself in the home. Sometimes I just do it just to calm my nerves, and it helps me to just sit still for a minute.
It doesn't seem to work because you're here. The way you've been doing it for the last 15 years doesn't work, because you've now got 4 convictions, and you got a 5th one pending. It doesn't work. So the question is, why do you get up and beat your head against a wall when every time you do that it hurts?
I don't know. Like in this particular situation, I have been doing good, and then both my kids had like just medical
Okay?
complications.
And how are you helping them by being involved in what you were involved in? How are you helping them by sitting here right now?
I'm not helping them at all by sitting here right now
Then why are you doing it?
because I'm 80.
Okay, great. Now we figured out the answer to why. Now, what's the answer to what? What are you going to do to stop doing it?
Like I said, I've been clean.
Don't tell me the people, places, and things. Then either.
No. I've just been, like I said, I've been clean. So, one thing about living sort of a high lifestyle is it's kind of like a fog or like a cloud over you. Every day you wake up and it's just like you just trying to make it to the next day. And
How many kids you got?
I have two.
How old are they?
One is 14, and this one here is 10. And I just want to continue just working and remaining clean and just spending as much time with my family, just staying around the
You don't let them smoke pot, do you?
no.
Why not?
I don't drink or smoke in front of my children
Why not?
because I know that it's bad. And
Why
I
do
try
you-
to get them.
So you're telling them, don't do this, don't do what I do, but then you continue to do it. What are they supposed to take from that? Do what I say, don't do what I do. What good is that?
It's not, man. I like I said, I had a rough childhood, so
All right,
I
so
spent
what?
my
so
life
what-
trying to get them as
I-
normal
I-
of a
I
child
read
as
your- I
possible.
read your pre-sentence report, okay? So I know all about that. All right? So your method of dealing with it is to smoke pot every day, to try to forget about it. The only problem is, once you come out of your fog, you still remember it. So then what do? You smoke pot to forget about it. And then when you come out of your fog, you remember it, okay? And so 15 years later, you're coming out of the fog and you still remember it. So that doesn't work. Is there something else that might work?
Yes, I believe so. I believe.
What?
Like I said lately, I've just been applying myself more into their lives, into their education, into doing things that basically just keeps me focused on the things that are important in my life, which is my children and my family. You know, trying to just keep myself motivated and reminded that I have something to live for.
Why didn't that dawn on you like 10 years ago? When this one was a newborn and the other one was 4. Why didn't it dawn on you then?
One of the things that I learned in 2000, and I think you said it was 16, is, and the guy that ran the class, you know, he was like an ex-addict, so out of all the people in there, he used to talk to me. He was from the same neighborhood as me. And he remembered when I played basketball and I was a good kid. And he said, coming from where we come from, a lot of times people don't understand they're living in the cave until they get outside of the cave. And he told me, he said, just because you're grown doesn't make you a man. He said, you have to get out of that cave. And once you get out of that cave, then you'll know that you were in the cave.
Well, when are you going to get out of the cave?
I believe I'm out of the cave, and I believe I can remain out of the cave for the rest of my life.
Okay. And so what have you done? What have you done since beating your head against the wall hasn't worked? What have you done to deal with the circumstances of your when you were young?
One of the biggest things that I've done, and I don't know, you know, if this makes any sense to a lot of people, but one of the main things that I've recently done was forgave myself. Because a lot of times, growing up in certain circumstances, you see things, you hear things, and you take blame in it, and you say, well, you know, maybe it's my fault, or, you know, that this happened, or maybe if I would have did this, then that wouldn't have happened. And, you know, some of those things I just had to forgive myself for. I've been recently, like I said, spending more time with my family, trying to get a better understanding on who I am and, you know, where I come from and where we come from, and just putting a lot of puzzle pieces together about myself, and just understanding other relatives reached out. I mean, people that some of them I never even met. Some of them I just haven't seen since, I was younger. And, they heard what I was going through and they said, listen,
You mean they heard what you were going through?
people that I hadn't, some of them I hadn't met before. Like, how you have relatives that maybe live in other states and cities and you haven't met them. And some of them I had, but, they remember me, they had met me before, but I was just too young to remember them. Let me say that. When they moved out of state or out of city, and they told me, that's why I left, because that situation was bad and that place was bad. And, I needed a new beginning. I needed to do something different. And, they told me that, that might be something that you want to consider when you get through with your situation, is you might want to think about just relocating and starting over.
All right, well, that isn't necessarily the answer, is it? What do you get, if you move, relocate, what are you getting away from?
I just took it as when an NFL player or basketball player gets traded to a new team, sometimes you get stuck and you just get sort of, I'm not going to say comfortable, because I don't feel like I've ever been in a situation where I could be comfortable, but you just get sort of into a routine, shall we say. And sometimes to break the routine, you have to be uncomfortable.
All right, your routine is you dwell on the past, right? On your childhood, you dwell on that, and then you turn to getting high, and you end up in the jackpot. That's your routine. You work, okay? Your mind wanders. You dwell on your past. You haven't dealt with that. So your method to deal with it is to get high. Okay, so if you move to Butte, Montana, okay, you'll work, your mind will drift, you'll think about your past, and you'll get high, because there's drugs in Butte. So that, the answer is not running somewhere else.
Well, I'm not saying that was, I just was giving you some sort of example of, like, just people that I've been in touch with, and, just knowing that somebody cares about you other than yourself, Like, I don't have like a...
Well, they probably do.
Yeah. Yes. But like, just, and me and her, we talk about that.
Why don't you focus and concentrate on what you have rather than what you don't have?
And that's basically what I've been working on myself. I've just been trying to focus on what I do have and what I am good at.
You got to work harder, because you're 40 years old.
And I want to.
Then do it.
I'm ready to do it.
I don't know if you're ready or not ready.
I guarantee you I'm ready.
I don't like when people make me guarantees.
I'm in my line of just dealing with people. That's why people trust me the way that they do, is because they know once I give you my word I'm going to do something, I do it.
Ms. Naroda?
Judge, as the state discussed in chambers with the court and defense counsel, the state feels at this time the defendant is not amenable to a community control sanction and would ask the court to impose a prison sentence.
that an unfair recommendation?
To be completely honest, I do feel so.
Okay,
Can I elaborate?
go ahead.
Only because, just due to the fact that I'm not a violent person and I don't have like a, demeanor of just being disrespectful towards people, or, I don't carry any, like stigma over myself that I'm tough or anything like that. I believe those places bring the worst out of people.
Oh, no question they do. No question that they do. And you know that firsthand, because you were there.
Absolutely.
Okay? But we can't have people running around selling drugs, right?
Correct. And I give you my word that I'm done with that.
Okay? Well, in some contexts, words don't really mean anything. Actions mean everything.
If given the opportunity, I believe my actions can prove that.
So you're right about one thing, you're not violent because your record doesn't indicate that. Okay? What you did was you sold drugs to a drug addict, a person who was trying to get his own ass out of a jackpot, and managed to do it quite well. So he used you to get what he wanted. Now, the irony is you were using him to get what you wanted. You wanted money, so you were using him. But the entire time the joke was on you because he used you to turn a felony into a misdemeanor and get paid at the same time.
I was unaware of that.
Well, it doesn't really matter whether you're aware of it because the reality is the drug dealers and the drug users are using each other to get what they want. At least that's what everybody thinks, okay? Now, if you were in the business of selling cars and you sold a Lexus to Jim, Jim wanted the Lexus, you wanted to sell it to him, you made money and he got what he wanted and everybody benefited, okay? Drug dealers and the drug buyers, they're presumably doing the same thing. The user wants to get high, so he finds a dealer to give it to him, the dealer gets money, so everybody's happy. Okay? Only you got used big time here. Okay? But so what? What does it matter?
It matters to me.
That's your fault. That's not his fault.
Right.
He's just a strung out drug addict trying to get what he can, and he got it. Okay? And that's your fault because you played the game. And like I said a long time ago, like 15 or 25 minutes ago, you don't play this game very well. You're a bad player at this game. Your head's got to hurt from all the time you've spent beating it against the brick wall.
With all due respect, Your Honor, my entire life I just always just felt like I was alone. So I just
Then
always
what are
felt,
these two people doing here if you've always been alone?
they're here because they love me and I love them. And I'm trying to show them
Okay.
by proving to
So-
you
so-
with my actions that
So
I
what
can.
you have to do is you got to figure out how you deal with your past that doesn't involve getting high all the time. Okay? Because that gets in the way of everything you do.
Correct.
And it always has. And I'm not a junior psychologist, okay, but, you know, Stevie Wonder could see that, all right?
Yes.
Okay. So when are you going to quit beating your head against the wall and deal with your past? So you don't have to be looking over your shoulder to figure out which cop is going to get you next for selling drugs.
I believe in my in my mind, I believe I started down that path day I met this gentleman right here, and he gave me some words of advice.
Advice don't mean shit unless you follow it, right?
I've been sticking to it so far.
All right, I reviewed the pre-sentence report and the drug and alcohol evaluation. And I have considered all the provisions in 29, 29, 11, 12, and 13. I'm going to place you on probation for 4 years. You're going to serve 6 days with credit for 6. No drugs or alcohol with screens. You're going to complete an intensive outpatient program, drug program. Follow all recommendations. You're going to get a mental health evaluation and follow the recommendations. That's probably the most important part of this whole thing. You're going to complete the decision points program. Is there a decision points program for males, Dave?
I believe so, Your Honor.
All right, and follow those recommendations. That's through probation. You're going to maintain full employment, and you're going to go to at least three AA meetings a week and get a sponsor and pay the costs and supervision fees. Any other terms, Mr. Tompkins?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
You understand the terms, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you don't follow the term, do you have any questions?
Just that I get his information before we leave.
Well, you're gonna meet with, who's his PO gonna be?
Jamie.
Okay. You're gonna probably have to set up an appointment. Is he gonna go over now or set up an appointment?
I'll talk to him after.
All right. All right, so if you don't follow these terms, guess what? Then the state files a motion to terminate, and if I find you violated, then I'll terminate you, and you've got 60 months in prison. That's what you're looking at, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And then if that happens, when you get out, then you'll maybe on post-release control, and they'll be looking over your shoulder. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do with them, then you go back to prison. So if all this goes south, then you'll be like 45 or 46 when you get out. Okay? And your kids will be 20 and 16 when you get out. The most important part of this whole thing is the mental health evaluation. Okay, so this is your responsibility. It's not your kids, it's not your fiance, it's not Mr. Matthews, it's not mine, it's not your probation officer, it's your responsibility. Anything else, Mr. Naroda?
I think, Judge, shall I include in the entry also that no use in screens?
I think I said that.
I'm sorry if you did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.